So the game starts off with Rhino breaking out of a prison convoy on his way back to the raft, and both of the Spider-Men have to stop him. And Peter Parker just about dies to Rhino, so Miles has to take over. And while he's fighting Rhino, he finds out that he has a superpower that he didn't know about, where he can shoot electricity from his hands. And he uses that to take down Rhino because it weakens him. Because, you know, if you do, I don't understand how that works. And then the owner of that facility, the dude who looks like he just came out of an LGBTQ parade, you know, he walks up and he talks to both of the Spider-Men like they're friends. I don't understand why they did this. Peter Parker looked fun in the first game, but for some reason they just decided they were going to change him. I don't hate the changes, but they're not as good as the first game. Miles finds one of his dad's old case files for a bad guy called the Prowler, and keep this in mind for later because it's important. Then his best friend shows up after months at his front door, and we'll find out she's a bad guy later. Then we meet his uncle, which his uncle didn't know instantly, but he figured it out that it was Miles, which his uncle turned out to be the bad guy, who then accidentally betrayed Miles by giving away his position. He was only trying to give away the girls. Let's see how old Miles is. Oh. Looky here, you gotta fight Rhino again after he gets his armor all souped up and stuff. And now you gotta make him headbutt tanks, because that's something they decided to add to the game. Miles' uncle kidnaps him to keep him safe, so he has to fight his uncle to get out. Miles' uncle learns something from Miles, so now he's a good guy instead of a bad guy, and he helps Miles. Miles ends up having to fight his best friend to keep the city safe from a giant reactor explosion. Basically, all this is them falling from a 20-story building. A 20-story drop knocks some sense into her, and she decides to save the city by blowing herself up with Miles instead of just dropping him, you know, and falling back to the ground where she would have been safer. And also the game gives you suits like this and this, but make up for it with this one right here. But for obvious reasons, Spider-Man should not have a cat in his backpack.